Welcome to Revenza Tales, where justice bites back. The day my father's casket sank into the earth, the sky seemed to grieve with me. Heavy clouds loomed over the Connecticut cemetery, the air thick with the scent of damp soil and unspoken loss. I stood at the graveside, my fingers clutching wilted roses, unable to let them fall. Henry Sullivan's death wasn't a surprise. Cancer had carved him away piece by piece, but the pain cut deeper than I'd braced for. My father was my lighthouse, the one who saw me when no one else did. Now, with him gone, I was adrift in a sea of sharks. I was Anna Sullivan, the youngest, the quiet daughter, always dutiful, always in his shadow. He called me his compass, the one who kept him grounded. But in our family, compasses didn't inherit empires. My mother Margaret stood regal in her black silk dress, her hand draped on my brother David's arm. They looked like a campaign poster, polished, poised, untouchable. Mourners whispered about Margaret's strength, David's readiness to lead the family. No one mentioned me, Anna, the invisible daughter. No one asked if I was breaking inside. That evening, the Sullivan estate felt hollow, the air heavy with the scent of polished wood and grief. We gathered in Father's study, his mahogany desk still carrying the faint trace of his cedar cologne. The lawyer, Mr. Grayson, unfolded the will, his glasses slipping down his nose, his hands unsteady. My heart pounded, clinging to Father's promise, whispered late at night, his voice frail but fierce, that he'd make things fair. He'd shield me from David's arrogance, from Margaret's icy favoritism. I held that promise like a lifeline as the lawyer's voice droned. To my wife, Margaret Sullivan, to my son, David Sullivan. My stomach twisted as the words spilled out. The estate, sprawling across acres of Connecticut countryside. The controlling shares of Sullivan Enterprises, a real estate empire of hotels and high-rises. The offshore accounts, the vacation properties. All theirs. And to my daughter, Anna Sullivan. My breath caught, hope flickering. I leave my love and a trust to ensure her comfort. A trust. A meager sum, a fraction of the fortune David now held. The room spun, my ears ringing. That's wrong, I said, my voice cracking. Father promised me a share. He said it would be equal. Margaret's lips curved, a smile sharp as a blade. Anna, darling, grief clouds the mind. Your father knew David was built to lead. This is for the best. David's eyes glinted, his pity a mask for triumph. Don't worry, Anna, he said, his voice smooth. I'll make sure you're taken care of. Mr. Grayson's gaze dropped, his fingers fumbling with the papers. In that moment, I knew something was poisonously wrong. For weeks, I tried to smother the doubt. Maybe Father had changed his mind in his final days. Maybe he believed David was the better choice. But the truth gnawed, relentless. Father loved me too fiercely to discard me like this. His promises weren't delusions, they were his heart. The will wasn't his. It was theirs. The cracks appeared faster than I expected. David claimed Father's office, stripping it bare. Decades of files, his old oak chair, the photos of us fishing by the lake, gone, replaced with sleek steel and glass. Margaret transformed the house, erasing Father's touches. New art, new curtains, the walls repainted a sterile white. When I spoke of him, small stories, his laughter, his lessons, Margaret's voice cut like frost. Anna, stop clinging to the past. We're building a future now. A future where I was erased. One sleepless night, I wandered into Father's study, now David's sterile domain. The air felt wrong, cold, stripped of memory. But behind a row of untouched books, I found it, a leather journal, its edges worn, its pages heavy with Father's scent. His handwriting filled it, notes on deals, sketches of buildings, but also his heart. One entry stopped my breath. Revised will today. Equal shares for David and Anna. She's the one who'll protect what I've built. My blood turned to ice. The will had been altered. Margaret and David had stolen my future, Father's final act of love, and thought I'd never know. The betrayal ignited something new in me. Not grief, not sorrow, but a fire, sharp, hungry, unstoppable. They expected me to fade, the quiet daughter who never fought back. They didn't know what they'd unleashed. Revenge demanded precision, not recklessness. Father taught me to wait, to plan, to strike only when the moment was right. So I hid the journal in my room, locked in a drawer beneath old letters. I smiled at Margaret's galas, nodded at David's boasts about his empire. All the while, I watched, my eyes sharp, my ears open. The Sullivans thought they'd won. But Anna, was just beginning. What secrets will Anna uncover next? Will her fire consume her enemies or herself? Smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell for more Revenza tales, where justice always strikes. Drop a comment. What would you do if your family stole your legacy? Stay tuned for part 2. Revenge requires a steady hand, not a trembling one. I wanted to storm into Margaret's pristine parlor, slam father's journal on her polished table, and demand the truth. But that would have played into their hands. David and Margaret would have dismissed me as the grieving, delusional daughter. Without ironclad proof, I'd be nothing but a tantrum they could silence. So I became Anna Sullivan, the quiet sister they underestimated, my fury hidden behind a meek smile. The second lesson of revenge. People reveal themselves when they think you're invisible. David was reckless, his arrogance a beacon. He threw lavish parties at the Sullivan estate, the house father built now overrun with strangers spilling champagne on Persian rugs, leaving cigar ash on velvet chairs. I lingered in corners, my phone in hand, pretending to scroll while voices drifted to me. One night, a guest, half drunk, laughed too loudly. "So you actually pulled it off?" he asked David, clinking glasses. "Just like that." David's grin was sloppy, his ego loose with whiskey. "Child's play." The old man could barely hold a pen at the end, and Margaret took care of the rest. "Sullivan Enterprises is mine." The words froze my blood. He'd confessed, brazen and unguarded. I wasn't the only one who heard. A waiter, his black vest crisp, paused with a tray of flutes, his eyes meeting mine for a fleeting second before he turned away. I memorized his face. I'd find him later. Margaret was sharper, her control like ice. She hosted galas, her widow's grief a performance for Connecticut's elite, her diamonds glinting under chandeliers. But I watched her hawk-like, as she sorted the mail each morning with surgical precision. One day, when her back was turned, I slipped a letter from the pile, tucking it under my coat. Upstairs, alone, I tore it open. A receipt from Grayson's law firm, a payment far too large, dated days before father's death. My pulse raced. Bribery. The trail was real. Suspicion wasn't enough for the revenge I craved. I needed evidence so sharp it could cut through their lies. At the county courthouse, I requested the will's public record, my hands steady as I signed the forms. The document matched the one read at the funeral, Margaret and David's polished forgery. But father was meticulous, a man of drafts and duplicates. Late one night, while David was passed out from bourbon, I crept into his office. Father's office, now sterile with chrome. In a dusty drawer, beneath old contracts, I found them, early drafts of the will. Each one named me, Anna Sullivan, with an equal share, just as he'd promised. Tears stung my eyes, my fingers tracing his handwriting. Proof, but not the final piece. I needed the forged signature, the undeniable betrayal. The waiter became my next move. It took weeks, slipping tips to caterers and party staff, until I tracked him down. His name was Michael, a tired man with kind eyes, working double shifts to feed his kids. We met in a diner, the air thick with grease and coffee. "I heard your brother that night," he said quietly. "He bragged about the will. It didn't sit right. Would you testify?" I asked, my voice steady. He hesitated, then nodded. "It's wrong, what they did. I'll help you." A witness. My heart surged, but I held back. A courtroom battle wasn't enough. David and Margaret's wealth and connections could bury a trial. I wanted more than justice. I wanted their world in ruins. Revenge is a chess game. Don't strike first, position your pieces. David's weakness was his ego. Margaret's was her reputation. Those were my targets. I opened a secret account, funneling my trust fund scraps into it, taking freelance bookkeeping jobs to build a war chest. The work put me in rooms with David's allies, investors, partners, people who smiled at his charm but whispered about his recklessness. I played my part, nodding at Margaret's plans, smiling faintly at David's boasts about his empire. They thought I was broken, a shadow fading away. Their arrogance was my weapon. People always leave cracks. David's was his carelessness. He bragged too loudly, drank too freely, trusted the wrong people. One was his mistress, Claire, a woman with sharp eyes and sharper ambition. I saw them at a downtown bar, her red lipstick bold as she leaned close, her phone angled on the table, recording, I was sure. I nearly laughed. Claire was no fool, she was collecting leverage. Margaret's crack was her pride. At a gala, I overheard her whisper to a friend, her voice smug. Anna's clueless. She thinks Henry's will was final. Poor girl doesn't know her father gave everything to David. Her friend frowned. Isn't that risky? What if she fights? Margaret's laugh was a blade. She's too spineless. She'll vanish, like always. My nails dug into my palms, drawing blood. Vanish? I'd carve my name into their bones. By winter, my arsenal was nearly complete. Father's drafts, his journal, the bribery receipt, Michael's testimony, Claire's recordings, obtained after a discreet meeting and a cash exchange she couldn't resist. Each piece was a brick in the wall I was building. But I didn't strike. I wanted them smug, untouchable, certain of their victory. The holidays arrived, our first without father. Margaret's Christmas gala was a spectacle, the estate glittering for Connecticut's elite. David stood at the center, glass raised, the air basking in adoration. I watched from the shadows, my smile faint, my heart a furnace. Then came January, and with it, the final spark. I overheard them in David's office, their voices low but clear. She's useless, Margaret hissed. Why keep her trust fund? Cut her off. David chuckled, his voice thick with disdain. Give it time. She'll come begging, exactly where we want her. Something inside me broke, not with pain, but with clarity. Patience was over. The final lesson of revenge, it's not one blow, but a tide. I began softly, anonymous leaks to a local journalist, a copy of the bribery receipt slipped into her inbox. Claire's recordings, posted to a shadowy forum, began to circulate. Doubts spread like mold through their perfect facade. But the real strike was coming, timed for a moment they'd never recover from. That night, alone in my room, the wind howling outside, I whispered to the dark. Father, I'll fix this. They'll pay for stealing from you. From us. The fire in my chest burned brighter than grief. Vengeance was awake, and it would wait no longer. The first wave of my revenge was a whisper, subtle but sharp, cutting through their facade. It began with a local journalist, a tenacious woman named Rachel Lee. I slipped an envelope under her office door, no sender, no note, just the receipt of Margaret's payment to Grayson's law firm, dated days before father's death. By morning, Rachel was on the phone, her questions rattling the firm's polished exterior. Lawyers loathe scrutiny they can't control, and the cracks began to show. At the same time, Claire's recordings hit the internet, uploaded to an anonymous forum. A grainy video of David, leaning across a bar table, his voice slurred with whiskey and pride. Father didn't stand a chance, he bragged. Margaret fixed the paperwork. The empire's mine. The clip spread like wildfire through Connecticut's tight-knit circles. Grocery stores buzzed, church pews hummed with whispers. Did you see what David Sullivan said? And Margaret? They laughed it off as gossip, but doubt took root, a weed in their perfect garden. Margaret and David felt the shift. At breakfast, Margaret's coffee cup trembled as she scrolled her phone, her voice sharp. These rumors are disgusting, she snapped, glaring at David. Who's spreading this filth? David's jaw tightened, his eyes darting. Jealous nobodies, he muttered. It'll blow over. But fear flickered in their faces, and fear makes people careless. The second wave hit harder. I met Michael, the waiter, in a quiet park, his hands nervous around a styrofoam cup. He recounted David's drunken boast from the party, his voice steady as I recorded every word. I sent the audio, anonymously, to Father's oldest business partners, men who'd built Sullivan Enterprises alongside him. Their fury was immediate, their trust in David shattered. Contracts dried up, invitations vanished, phone calls went unanswered. David's empire began to fray, and he didn't even see the threads pulling apart. But I wasn't done. Revenge isn't just about dismantling power, it's about public ruin, forcing the guilty to choke on their lies in front of their worshippers. Margaret's spring gala was the perfect stage, a glittering spectacle for Connecticut's elite. When the invitation arrived, I smiled, tracing its gold-embossed edges. The night was coming. The gala glowed with decadence, chandeliers casting prisms across marble floors, guests dripping in sequins and silk. Margaret floated through the crowd in a sapphire gown, her diamonds flashing, her smile a queen's mask. David played the air, his charm polished but strained, dark circles betraying sleepless nights. I arrived quietly, my black velvet dress understated, father's old pocket watch pinned to my chest, a silent nod to him. No one noticed me slip toward the stage, my hand clutching a remote in my pocket. Margaret took the podium, her voice honeyed. Tonight, we celebrate Henry Sullivan's legacy and the bright future of our family. Her words grated, each one a lie. I pressed the remote. The projector behind her hummed to life. Guests murmured, expecting a sentimental slideshow. Family photos flickered, father in his office, David and me as children on the estate's lawn, Margaret posed by the fireplace. Then the screen shifted. Father's journal page, scanned and stark. Anna will inherit equally. She's the one to carry my legacy. Murmurs turned to gasps. Margaret's glass froze mid-air, her face paling. Next came the will drafts, father's handwriting clear, naming me co-heir. Then David's video, his voice booming. Father didn't stand a chance. Margaret fixed the paperwork. The room erupted, guests rising, voices clashing in shock. Cameras flashed, phones recorded. Margaret's smile shattered, her voice shrill. Turn it off. David lunged for the projector, his face crimson. Stop this now. But the final slide landed, the law firm receipt, Margaret's name beside a damning sum. The proof was undeniable. Chaos swallowed the gala. Reporters swarmed, shouting questions. Guests demanded explanations, their outrage a rising tide. Margaret shrieked, her lies unraveling, while David shoved through the crowd, sweat beading on his brow. I stood at the edge, calm as a storm's eye, watching their world collapse. For once, I held the power. The fallout was swift. By dawn, headlines screamed across Connecticut, Sullivan Empire rocked by forgery scandal. Widow and son accused of stealing inheritance. Investigations launched, the law firm scrambling to deflect blame. David's deals evaporated, partners pulling out like rats from a sinking ship. Margaret's social circle turned their backs, their whispers venomous. The Sullivan name, once a beacon, became a curse. Margaret retreated to the estate, curtains drawn, her elegance reduced to shadows. David fled town, hounded by creditors and rumors of bankruptcy. I visited father's grave one evening, the air cool, the headstone gleaming under moonlight. I did it, I whispered, laying fresh lilies at its base. They'll never touch your legacy again. The wind answered, soft and steady. Revenge didn't heal the ache of his absence, didn't erase the years of being unseen. But it balanced the scales. And that was enough. Months later, I saw Margaret at a cafe, her hair unstyled, her eyes hollow. She met my gaze, and for a moment, I braced for her venom. Instead, she turned away, clutching her purse like a shield. David was gone, last seen chasing loans in another state, his empire dust. I built something new, a small firm, my own, rooted in father's principles. It was quiet, steady, mine. The final lesson of revenge. It doesn't rewrite the past, but it makes the guilty remember. In that truth, I found my peace. What will the next tale of vengeance unveil? Who will rise, and who will fall? Smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell for more Revenza tales, where betrayal meets its match. Drop a comment. What would you do to reclaim a stolen legacy? See you in the next story.